The next opening we'll be looking at is called the Pirc or Pirc defense, which begins after e4, followed by d6. Black is in no hurry to occupy the center immediately, and gives white some time to strengthen his own center. The idea is that black will eventually attack the center with his pieces, and hopefully win one of the pawns in the center of white's. We'll be grouping this together with the modern attack, the modern defense, which is after e4, g6, and after d4, d6 is played a lot of times, and the situation becomes quite similar. For our purposes in this video, though, we will play the move e4, d6. Now, white controls the center with d4, getting 2 pawns on the 2 central squares, and controlling all these squares in the center. But black wastes no time at all either, and plays knight to f6, immediately attacking the central pawns. Now, of course, black can also play g6, and after white plays knight to c3, the setup remains pretty similar. If black plays c6, the idea being b5 and b4 later on, white can simply just play bishop to e3. When black fiend shadows his bishop, then we can play the move queen to d2. The idea is that white will eventually try to play bishop to h6 and trade off the dark square bishops, which makes the kingside dark squares for black very weak. If black plays, for example, pawn to b5, then white can play bishop to d3. The idea being that if he plays b4, then our knight has a square on e2 to go to without blocking the bishop in on f1. Now, black won't play b4 because that weakens his pawn structure, and black will probably play something like knight to d7. When he goes knight to d7, then white can simply keep developing with knight to f3, black can develop his queen with queen to c7, and white will simply castle. After it castles, black will play knight to f6, developing his knight, and now once white is allowed to, he can play bishop to h6. And after black castles, white moves his knight back to avoid b4 attacks later on, and after c5, white can strengthen the center further with c3. The idea is that white will eventually trade off the pair of bishops here, and after trading off the pair of bishops, then we can just use our center, the d4 and e4 pawns, to our advantage. White has more central space, and the light square bishop is looking very good, since most of white's pawns are on the dark squares. Another option for black in this kind of line is playing bishop g7 immediately. The idea is that after bishop e3, black will play the move a6 without playing the move c6. Black plays a6 to play b5 instead of playing c6, and hopefully he can even get his knight on the c6 square later on to attack the d4 pawn. However, this time white does not need to let black play the move b5. White can play the move a4, forcing black to stay on b6 instead of playing b5. This setup is actually called the hippopotamus to many players. The idea is that black moves his knights to d7 and e7 and brings his 2 bishops both to the fiend shadows. White can simply develop normally bishop c4, e6, and bring his knight to g2 or knight ge to e2 because he wants to play the move f4 or f3 in the future, supporting his center. Black will continue with his structure, and white will just simply mobilize all his pieces. After queen to d2, we're threatening once again bishop to h6. Oops. We want to move our bishop from here to h6. And after castling, then we can just go bishop h6 immediately, for example. White will have a strong attack after the moves h5 or h4 and h5. White can open up the h-file, and after opening up the h-file, white can attack the h7 pawn, especially with his queen later on h6. However, black will play h6 himself, preventing white from playing bishop h6. Then, after castle, black will continue with the structure with knight to d7. White will strengthen his own center with f3, controlling the e4 square. And white simply has a nice development lead. Black's bishop rooks are not out yet, and white already has everything developed, ready to attack. White should be much better here. Now, if black plays knight to f6 on the second move, white has an attack called the 150 attack. The 150 attack is a very simple structure to use. We play knight to c3, protecting the pawn on e4. And after g6, our idea is very simple. We play bishop e3, queen e2, and bishop h6. We follow up quickly with h4, h5, and try to attack the king as fast as possible. Now, of course, if black doesn't play g6, the other idea is to play the e5, and we can transpose into a philidor after knight to f3. So if black wants to play the Pirc, he will usually play g6. After g6, we go bishop e3, like I said, and we complete our structure queen d2. Now, when black castles, then we can simply start playing the move bishop h6. After c6 now, we waste no time and just attack. h4 is the correct move. Notice we do not need to get this knight out yet, nor this bishop. In fact, we're not really sure where this bishop would be best placed on. I'd like to issue a warning here. Instead of playing bishop to c4, we should simply play a bishop to e2 when we do develop it, or bishop to d3. The reason being that after bishop to c4, black can play b5. And now if you play bishop to b3, b4 wins a pawn on e4. Since black is going to play b5 anyway, bishop to c4 simply loses a tempo. Bishop to c4 is therefore not advised. The correct move here is to play h4 to attack as fast as possible. And if black plays queen to b6, attacking the b2 pawn, then white can simply castle queenside. Castling queenside here is a good idea because the king is not really in danger on the queen side. There's nothing for black to attack white with. He only has a queen out there, there's nothing else. Black might try to strike in the center with e5, but that's not a pori. We just simply take on g7, black recaptures, and now we play the strong move h5. The idea here is to have his knight take on h5, which seems like it loses a pawn right now, but after knight to h5, we can play the move, for example, bishop to e2. Bishop to e2 threatens to win the pawn back with bishop takes h5, and if the knight gets out of the way, for example, knight to f4, then after g3, the knight has to move again. Say it trades with the bishop, then we're going to play the move queen to h6 next, and that doesn't look very stoppable. For example, if he plays h5, we can continue to attack with the later on g4. If black develops normally with bishop to e6, then we trade the pawns on g6, and now the h-file is open. We immediately use that with the move queen to h6 check. If the king goes back in, then we just play knight to f3, intending the move knight to g5, attacking the h7 pawn. Black can come back and defend the h7 pawn with queen to c7, but after knight to g5, this is still very strong. We're attacking the bishop and putting more pressure on the h7 pawn as well. When the bishop is defended with queen to e7, then we can continue to solidify the center with d5. Idea here is that after d5, we force this bishop to move again, and if, for example, bishop to g4, we play f3, forcing the bishop to move yet again. Now black's idea might be to trap the queen in with bishop to h5 and to nullify the threats on the h-file, but this doesn't work, sadly, because g4. And now white will be much better. White will also win a minor piece here. As you can see, white's attack on the king side is very potent. He can use this attack very quickly by playing the moves h4, h5 with the bishop h6. Just one last warning here. I don't advise playing the move h4 before playing the move bishop to h6, simply because this gives black the opportunity to play the move h5. If black plays h5, then bishop to h6 is not as powerful, because even after, for example, c6 and trades, then white will have a hard time breaking this fortress on h5. Even if he plays f4, f3 and g4, black is not obliged to take on g4, and maybe later on he'll get his knight on h5, which is still very safe for him. Therefore, I think it's better to play bishop to h6 first, and save h4, h5 for later, because then black cannot play h5 on his own. Let's take a little bit of a review. Now, black's idea in the Pirc, once again, is to attack the center with d6 and letting white get a huge center first, but then developing his pieces to put more pressure there. For example, bishop to g7 and putting more pressure on the e4 square after knight f6. But white should not be afraid of this line because he is faster in development. He can go after knight f6, for example. He can go knight to c3 and start the 150 attack immediately with bishop to e3, followed by queen d2 and h4, h5. If black plays something like g6 and tries to play the move a6 after that, to play b5 without playing c6, white can always have the option of playing a4 and stopping black from playing b5. In that case, I think white will just have a simple development lead and a better center. Of course, if black plays the move e5 at any time, we have knight to f3, and that just transposes into a Philidor position, which should be easy for you to play.